Okay, so we're back. We're talking with Sean regarding his issues and the issues in the Middle East, and we're talking about his viewpoint. Sean, it sounds like the politics that is going on in the Middle East and your interest in it, it sounds like your conversion to Islam was a natural progression from your interest in it. What would you say?
It was natural insofar as I never doubted that Muhammad was a messenger or a prophet of God. My actual belief in this regard is that Muhammad, whether or not directed by an angel or not, I personally think that's plausible for personal spiritual reasons. But the point is that he was taking the Old Testament and the Gospels of the New Testament, which were not known to the pagan worship for the most part of the Arab Peninsula at that point, because it had been lost. There had been the collapse of Rome and the extension of the Byzantine Empire. And so really what happened was that this region had, for the most part, fallen into groups of nomads, farmers, people, but groups of people that were not really embodied within a state, within a sovereign state, at least in the Arab Peninsula. So Muhammad takes those books, those great books, and he translates them into what is the Quran. He just gives, it's almost like a commentary on those books. That's what he's really doing. And then he's using that commentary to say there's only one God. And we need to get rid of the pagan idols that the various, in order to go, if you go back to Babylon, one way of keeping people organized is through idol worship. Because what you do is you basically send out a god to each different region. One region has Mithras, another one has Apollo, another one has Isis, and Baal, and then you basically worship that idol in your way, and you basically pay coin to the temple that runs it. And meanwhile, it's really like a priestcraft intelligence operation that's lording over you, and you owe your debts ultimately to that temple, that church. What Muhammad is saying is there's only one God. It's not, don't fall into this idol worship. He's reiterating what the Old Testament had said in the first place. It's exactly the same mission as Moses. It's we're going to smash the calf and all of these various idols that you're putting up. Don't worship them. Worship the one God. And where is the one God? He's everywhere. He's in everything. He's immanent. And you can find him. You don't have to go to a mosque to pray. That's the beauty of Islam. It's the idea of 5 times a day, no matter where you are. You basically get in touch with God. It's a very direct personal relationship.
Were you a practicing Jew before this?
No, the thing is, the problem, this is problematic with religion in general. What does it mean to practice? To my thinking, I believe in the spirit of the law more than the letter of the law. And I think Christ is, very close to my thinking in this regard. It has to do with what is your spirit. Are you a good person? Are you a good Samaritan? Are you merciful? Are you kind? So in terms of your actual practice and form, this has to do, again, with Muhammad. What he's trying to do is to basically establish certain traditions and customs to organize a society, a state. You need a certain constitution. And without, America is unique in that we had a secular constitution, probably because Freemasons were the conspirators involved in creating it. But, historically, most of the common laws are derived from some sort of religious practice. And so when it comes to Islam, he uses the one God as the creator, and then the Quran as the basis, and the Quran and the Sharia law, which is actually Mosaic law, as the basis for the rules and traditions of the caliphates that form after his death. Although, what he does is he's a great organizer. He obviously doesn't live to, establish the caliphate and rule over it.
But I heard you say at one point that you studied multiple religions. Why Islam, not Christianity? Because it sounds like
I have.
There are a lot of similarities.
I have. I've read I've read probably more of the Bible than most Christians. Who, people I ask, just, are you a Christian? Sure. Have you read the Bible? No. Well, I've read it. I'm not to say that I'm an expert. I don't, but who is? At the end of the day, it is a question of interpretation, and it's probably important to read them in the original text, which I have not done. I've only read, the transliterations into English, which obviously gives way to a lot of mistranslation. But the point was that Islam to me has a tremendous impact on world history. If you study the Renaissance, for example, it actually gave way in many ways to the Renaissance. The architecture of Islam gave way of the mosques, inspired much of the church building in the West. Even there's arguments that Dante's Commedia, his great comedies, were inspired in some ways by Islam because of Muhammad's ascension unto heaven this one night in Jerusalem. That was, that was the essence of Dante's ascension, diving into hell and then rising into heaven. So, there's a tremendous history in Islam, and I wanted to, by converting, simply voice the opinion that there's only one God, and I reaffirm my faith in the one God. And Allah is not a different God by any means than Jehovah. I mean, people can argue, and they have actually, that Jehovah is again a pagan God who is not the actual one creator God. So to me, there's only one God, and if you voice that opinion, if you express that opinion, you've reaffirmed your faith. And to say that Muhammad is a messenger of God is completely rational. Now, whether or not I practice, that's ultimately a personal choice. But I think all religions have a spirituality, a spiritual essence, that if you go back to the source of the book, you recognize that it's the spirit of the man, it's the spirit of your relationship to God, and your understanding of God is merciful, just, righteous. That's what matters most. I think the enemy of all these religions, because Muhammad always said the people of the book are not our enemy, they're not the infidels. That's a misunderstanding to say that Jews and Christians are the infidels he's referring to. That's completely wrong. He calls the people of the book of the same, worshiping the same God, he calls them believers. The infidels are the Satanists who worship the ego, who put up idols that we now see everywhere around us. The icons, the pop stars, and the media symbols and slogans and temples that have basically been put up that we should worship and give our energy into them, and to money, for example, mammon, which is really what corrupts so many people in our modern culture. That's Satanism. That's material worship, as opposed to the spiritual worship that we are all here to create and give unto the one Creator.
So are you now trying to convert people to Islam?
No, in fact, I don't even know that Islam is the only solution in any capacity. What I'm saying is there's only one God. It doesn't matter if you worship, if you read him through Quran, if you read him through Christianity or Judaism. I have a lot of dialogue to do with Muslims, because frankly, there are a lot of Muslims who are not Muslims. There are a lot of Christians who are not Christian. They don't understand because they think of it formally in terms of the form of the worship. They think of it as a tradition. For example, in Iran, if you consort with women in public, this is a violation of their theocratic law. Whereas in Turkey, it would not be interpreted the same way, and so you're able to do much more. Well, I do have problems with the Iranian form of practice. I think it's a literal interpretation, but being a Muslim, at least I can voice this and tell them that I would disagree in terms of interpreting the Quran.
Well, I really said that to say because of the surveillance that's going on currently surrounding Muslims. Do you feel that you're being surveyed or under surveillance?
Oh, my dear, I've been surveyed for at least 2 years, which I know of. I know. I'm not sure which agencies are doing it, but I know that I'm of interest to various groups, and has to do with not just my affiliations, but the work that I've been engaging in historically, as well as currently as a filmmaker.
One question I have, if I could, on this issue of conversion. Of course, the most famous conversion to Islam in America was that of Malcolm X. He became El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. And of course, that one was at Mecca and so forth. Since your return, have you heard from other people from the Islamic community, and have they commented, or have others commented to you about their response to what you did?
Well, we've spoken briefly with someone from Nation of Islam, and I got a chance to go on a radio show with a former Nation of Islam fellow. But in terms of the actual thrust of it, no. I mean, there's been no concerted goal to try to bring me into an organization. I would like to work with people like Russell Simmons, who are basically defending Muslims against Islamophobia. And my main emphasis is to bring understanding between the great religions, and anyone who's studied the religions and has an open mind recognizes the commonality as opposed to the minor differences. I mean, the only issue between Christianity and Islam really is whether or not you believe Christ is God. And many Christians don't believe Christ is God. They think that he spoke the word of God, which is acceptable to a Muslim anyway. So, so just in terms of the question, I don't know how I'm going to work myself into Islamic culture here. I think that I would like to be more of a free thinker in the tradition, free thinker who has principle and morals, and in the tradition of Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, Gandhi said, "I am a Hindu, I'm a Christian, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jew." I feel the same sentiment.
Well, I want to ask you, given the surrounding, the climate that's going on now at Bridges Television with, we're a Muslim station, and I wanted to know if you had any thoughts about what's going on as far as, Verizon is trying to put a halt to Bridges TV and has given us a deadline as when we're going off the air. Do you feel that it's surrounding this climate of fear that's going on about Muslims, does that play into it at all?
I think it has more to do with the economic collapse that I referenced. I think that, frankly, these major corporations are in trouble. I mean, the whole system is in trouble, and they haven't. Again, they won't say it. Maybe on Fox News, a few people will be brave enough to say that we're still in chaos. But if you look at for example, the statistics of people unemployed, the amount of businesses, small businesses going out of business, this is not surprising to me in any way. And of course, Verizon will cut a smaller network like this because it has probably more of a Muslim base, and Muslims are often forgotten as American citizens. I mean, unfortunately, 9/11 did really put Muslims into a strange position in this country, because of the way that Bush and the neocons phrased it as being not just a war on terror, but almost a war on Islam. The idea that the Islamists are all, Islamists are fanatics and they're crazy and they're terroristic. It put many Muslims in fear in this country, and I think that's such a shame, because we have this great tradition of freedom of religion and expression. I mean, the fact that a mosque can't be built near the World Trade Center, a mosque which worships God, maybe the person behind the mosque might have been a bad person, I'm not sure, but just the principle of it is interesting. It makes you wonder, who do we have faith in? Do we not have faith in God? Are we so fearful as human beings that that all our fortunes and what we've built here materially is going to be taken away from us? Well, where is our true faith in our Creator, and the fact that, if you say you're a Christian, or you say you're Jewish, and you say you're Muslim, then have faith in that higher power.
We're going to take a break again right here, Sean. So we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.